Welcome, listeners, to Snippit Sports Science Podcast. This is Jared Coleman-Stark, and today we're continuing the interview with Dr. Adam Storey.
So we're pre-post most of my PhD from my last chat, and I get almost every day I think about your heated gym.
Yeah.
And how much better that is than my facilities. Because I have a chamber.
Yeah.
I have a small environmental chamber.
Yeah.
And the chamber's not built for lifting.
No.
At all.
Yeah.
Especially at the weights that most of my athletes are doing. They'll break the chamber easily.
Yeah.
And I've had a few comments from people about it, just about the environment of the chamber itself. I'm like, this is very impressive.
Yeah.
It's just a box.
Yeah.
And it's got all the bits and pieces sticking out of the ceiling of the chamber on it, but it's all this mechanical sort of looking stuff, all the ventilation and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I've had a few comments.
It's tricky. I mean, it's same kind of challenge over at Victoria. In Melbourne, they've got your classic heat chamber. We've got your classic heat chamber here at ADT as well. But I guess if you're looking for like a good ecologically valid sort of training study where athletes are exposed to a good heat stimulus and able to do a decent strength and power session, then you almost need something like where you've got a heated gym per se. And I guess the limitation of what we've got downstairs is we can't control humidity. Obviously, or else you'd have bloody rusty treadmills. And
does it dry it up, or?
It is a relatively dry heat. I mean, we've got infrared heat panels and heat pumps supplying a lot of heat.
But you've got heat pumps as well.
Yeah.
So it is convection as well as the infrared.
Yeah.
Interesting.
As a way to supplement and almost top up.
Right. And you can kind of change the.
We can change it up.
Switching on each of them. Yeah. If you want more infrared versus more convection.
That's right. Yeah.
So you're the only person I could ask this kind of stuff on.
Yeah.
What do you find for infrared versus convection?
We actually found that infrared was good for a couple of reasons. In terms of it being financially economical, it's actually a lot more efficient to run the heat panels.
Also, just logistically,
cost-wise, yeah. Downside is it does take a while to bring a room that big to temperature. Okay. So having the combination of heat pumps plus the heat panels, you can bring that room to temp within, say, 20 minutes, which is pretty good. So if you've got participants coming in or athletes that want to do a heat training block, you can just basically crank the heat up, and in 20 minutes you've got it at, say, 35 to 38 degrees.
Okay.
And then I guess once you're in that training environment, you've got, say, a squad of maybe 10 to 15 athletes in there, you can easily turn the heat pumps off and just have the infrared panels going, and that room will stay at 10 the entire time.
Yeah. So you don't find it's hot enough just from the platform being right over the panel? You're not the platform being right under the panel?
Under the panel. I guess our roof, the ceiling in there is, I guess, sort of decent height, but if it was any lower, you would get that direct stimulus.
Because that's sort of one of the ideas that we've had is moving away from our chamber just to be able to use heat more effectively in the actual gym environment, ecological validity, which I think is massively undervalued in research. I think we need a lot more ecological validity. We were just going to get mobile infrared panels, put them on hand trucks, and just sort of wheel around hand truck infrared panels and just set it up next to the platform and just sort of try and blast them directly.
I reckon that would be legit. I mean, you could easily just have, absolutely, just almost like these 2 or 3 panels just encompassing the athlete, and it would get pretty bloody hot pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly. Because our idea is trying to implement the intermittent heat as well as the continuous. Is they can walk into the platform and just the platform is hot, essentially, and then they can walk out of the platform and then it's the cool, regular air-conditioned environment. And then that way they're not affecting the other athletes. So there can be athletes doing more high work capacity sort of training, and then they're doing their high velocity training on the platform without interfering between the two areas.
That would be good, actually. And I guess with the design downstairs, the only sort of area the ceiling's of a height where you will feel it, but you're not going to get roasted underneath the panel. There is one area, and we have an Ultra-G treadmill in there, and the Ultra-G treadmill is quite elevated. So when
that's people, a bit warmer.
People are running there just happens to be a panel right above that one as well. So.
I think that's a good combo, though.
Like, it is.
Heat training with Ultra-G. Perfect.
So the people that are on that don't typically like it, but I guess you get some good benefit out of it. Double whammy.
Yeah, so I'll just throw in for anyone who doesn't know what a Alter G is. It's just a treadmill that you strap your hips into, and then it inflates a bunch of positive pressure onto the legs and lifts the body up. So you're running it up to bring it down to 50% body weight, 40%.
Yeah. That's right. It's almost like running on the surface of the moon.
Yeah, so it's part of what we talk about in a lot of our other episodes, where we remove the mechanical load, the body weight during the running, and then apply a metabolic stress, the heating from the infrared panel above.
Yeah.
It's such a good combo.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, so I guess what sort of other areas would you ideally like to research? You have to do another PhD.
Anything, mate. I had to do another PhD. Well, I mean, it's hard to see, the value of doing another PhD. So I'm complicating the question more than just the idea of if you were to work on something for 3 to 4 more years.
Yeah.
But I really think omics is where it's at, like genomics, proteomics, that sort of area. I think we have far too reductionist of an approach in exercise science. So we look at one thing a lot of the time. Like we just look at testosterone, we just look at growth hormone, we just look at lactate or the pH. We look at one thing and we try and draw so many conclusions from a single metabolite or hormone. And that's not how the body works at all. It's the interaction of everything that's happening. And so I think we need a better map of everything that's happening to be able to be applying more effective interventions. And particularly with genomics, I think we could leap just decades ahead in training if we had more genomics, because you have an athlete come in, you screen their genome. Well, first of all, for talent ID, especially for smaller countries, it's not too hard to screen an entire genome of the entire country for athletic talent. And then you just find all these people who've fallen through the cracks that have amazing athletic talent and don't even know it. It's just inside of them. I can't imagine how many people we've missed out on just because they never did sport.
It's crazy,
They're an incredible athlete. They would have done it if they'd had maybe the social support for it, which then we could be providing. And they've never really done sport and never known that they would have been a gold medalist. They have the potential to do that. Because if someone came to you and they were like, "Hey, we screened your genome, you could be a gold medalist," how would that change your training? It'd be incredible.
Interesting,
Yeah, and then I mean, this is where people would be disagreeing with me, I think, a lot more. But then it also means that we don't need to devote as many resources to people who do not have talent in them at all. Like they might be a good athlete now, but they just don't have potential for that medalist or actually even getting to the Olympics or an international competition in the first place. Is they might be very good, but there's a cap on what they can get to. And that's just, I mean, that it wouldn't be to take away training from them, but just to acknowledge that there might be a cap here. I mean, we'd obviously approach that much more sensitively than the ones that we find that could actually be like have the potential to be gold medalists. So it'd be more for recruiting than cutting. I don't think it should really be used for cutting someone from a program. It should be used for bringing people into a program. I think that's a much more appropriate way to apply it. And the bigger one to me is actually beyond the talent identification. If an athlete comes in, you can screen their genome and you can see what they'll actually respond to. This is something that we don't like to talk about a lot because it would discourage people, I think, from trying. A lot of people don't respond to exercise. Obese populations have a very blunted response to exercise. They don't respond to it as effectively, and that's a condition where they have a bunch of response, but also genetically everyone responds to exercise differently. Like you're saying, some boys look at a dumbbell and then they just grow just by looking at a dumbbell. They're ridiculous. And I don't think that's hyperbole, to be honest. I think you put some people in the gym, they start mental training enough that mental training is genuinely enough to make them grow. I don't think that's actually hyperbole. I think that's actually a genuine effect that actually happens. And I think there's a decent amount of evidence that would agree with that. And so it would be more, rather than we get a new athlete and we have to throw every other training program at them
Yep.
for years at a time
Yep.
until we find what works best for them. We can just screen the genome and just know from all that data in the background, hey, we train them this way, and then they're good. And especially when we look at sort of the age limitations that peak performance has for people going to international competitions. I mean,
Yep.
we do have a time constraint. So we have a constraint of what the athlete can achieve and when they have to achieve it by. And we'll spend years doing ineffective training before we can figure out what works for them and then actually get them strong, actually get them fit. And I think it would revolutionize training. It would absolutely be incredible. And health.
Yeah.
I think it would revolutionize physical activity and health in our community. I mean, ultimately, I think that's what we really care about is, I mean, we love sport, but at the end of the day, it's about people.
Yeah. Absolutely fascinating, mate. And the area of genomics was what I did for my PhD with the Olympic lifters.
Right.
And I mean, that sort of thesis question came about like being a coach and seeing these lifters train 2 to 3 times a day at relatively maximal to near maximal intensities across those 3 sessions and still performing exceptionally well.
Right.
Drug-free athletes. And as I said, at that break between honours and PhD and during that coaching period, that sort of got me thinking about that PhD question is how the hell are these men and women able to do that?
Because it breaks me.
Day-to-day basis, yeah. I mean, 6 training days a week, 2 to 3 sessions a day. You know, it's anywhere from 12 to 18 sessions within a week that they're doing high intensity resistance training. And, you know, to try and answer that question, hormonal stuff had been done in the 80s and 90s. So we said that a genomics approach has to be done, and we screened the genomes of these lifters, and out of the 23,000 genes that we screened, we could see that those lifters that really responded to that high frequency of high intensity lifting, you know, a massive cohort of their genes involved in protein synthesis, protein carrying capabilities, turnover, all that kind of stuff, repair, regeneration were just through the roof in these individuals. And again, it's just sort of question, well, chicken and egg, was it the cohort that we used were highly trained. They had anywhere between 7 to 15 years of dedicated Olympic lifting training under their belt.
And that'll change your genome.
That would change your genome. So is it the case that training stimulus really changed the genome in those top level lifters, or were they born with a predisposition to enable basically them getting smashed on a daily basis and they can just come back like Wolverine?
Yeah.
You know, and that sort of really opened my eyes to that sort of concept, and I sort of was thinking of what you mentioned before in that telling ideas, you know, could we screen these individuals and find if they've got that predisposition, will that change the way we train them and everything like that? And because anecdotally at the time I could see that with my top level male lifters, they could handle a greater frequency of high intensity lifting than my top female lifters. Females could handle great amounts of volumes, volumes that would absolutely destroy men.
Yes.
But the volume stimulus is what got the female lifters to their peak. The intensity is what got the males to their peak. And again, there's probably massive hormonal interactions with that, getting the volume up to get their testosterone up and everything like that. But
I guess the pain tolerance.
Pain tolerance as well. Yeah, massive. It's such a multifaceted thing, and I don't know if you're familiar with sort of Jamie Wheeler and Stephen Kotler's research into the flow genome.
No,
project.
No, not at all. No.
Are you familiar with sort of the state of flow and everything?
Oh, well, when you say flow, I think flow cytometry. Is that, or do you mean?
Yeah, no.
Do you mean like flow state in the head, or
flow state in the head?
Yeah. Psychological state of flow. Yeah,
absolutely. Just when other people coin it as being in the zone, or the flow state is probably the common terminology now. But it's now these individuals are sort of looking at different athletes across the world, and they've looked at golfers who can get into states of flow in these really sort of controlled environments, but they've also looked at extreme sport athletes, so base jumpers, free rock climbers, big wave surfers, who just literally have put their life in their hands, or they're up against a massive wall of ocean water, yet they can just carve up that wave like no man's business, and they're probably singing a song in their head at the same time.
Absolutely.
So how do those individuals get into those states of flow when other people couldn't do it? So what they're trying to do now with this Flow Genome Project is decode the genes that are associated with flow.
Excellent.
Which is crazy. It's mind blowing because going back to your concept of can we identify genes that would be attributable to the next gold medalist or world record holder? I agree, but then I also sort of working with athletes question it as well, because it's talent isn't always everything, and I've seen so many time and time again when the least talented athlete in a group, whether it's an individual athlete or a team sport athlete, greatly excels past everyone because their work ethic is better. And that sort of relates back to that Flow Genome Project. What are the genes that can code work ethic? It's are there genes, or is it nature versus nurture? It's just 100%. It's one of these paradigms that it's just blowing my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, one that I've always thought about is when a person with obesity says, "Oh, it's because of my genetics," I sort of think, well, I know you're trying to say that's your genetics for your physiology, but maybe it's your genetics for your psychology.
Yeah.
It's your genetics for your motivation to train and eat healthy. Yeah. And I think we've really undervalued. That's one of those areas that we've really undervalued in sport, I think. Is the psychology.
100%. And there's a hallmark study, I can't think of which university it was done over in the States. It's killing me. It's escaped my mind, but they showed like just the sheer effect of psychological perception on how it can control your appetite hormones. Hormones like ghrelin and your insulin response. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with the study where they basically had a group of people consume two different types of milkshake. One milkshake was branded as low fat, healthy, great start to the day, and that kind of marketing. The other shake was basically marketed as ultra indulgent, way to treat yourself, a mega shake, of all ages, exactly the same shake. But what they showed is that people's perception to that shake, as I said, altered their ghrelin response, their one of the key hormones involved in appetite regulation, insulin response. So again, it's your perception of if I eat that, I'm going to get fat. Well, really?
Right.
Are you going to get fat? You've thought that you get fat, so maybe you will. And I'm not saying that I'm lean by any way, shape, or form.
You're pretty lean.
But people always give me shit about I've got an appetite that will match anyone.
Right.
With my weightlifters, we always used to have an annual all-you-can-eat ribs competition. I'm 3-time reigning champion at that.
Yeah.
And people always give me shit around like, how come you can eat whatever you want, but you don't seem to get fat?
Yes.
And I don't know, like it's my I just always had this belief that I will be able to metabolize it. I'll be able to burn it off. I don't sort of dwell on the fact that I've eaten this. I've eaten 1.5 kilos of ribs. I'm going to get fat. I'm just like, that was a good one.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on. So it again got me thinking around that. How much impact does your psychology have on your composition and everything?
Yeah, as long as you're protein overfeeding.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. Oh yeah, I mean, it's crazy stuff. It's stuff out of Red Bull, for example. Have you seen some of the research coming out of Red Bull?
No.
Yes, it's
with the flow states, or
everything. So Red Bull is just absolute world leader. In terms of what they're doing. So they're, again, generally speaking, people sort of see these extreme sport athletes and think that they're just a bunch of young teenagers living a dream, smoking weed and just having fun.
It's hard. They lose athletes.
Yeah.
Not the way we lose athletes. Right? Their athletes die.
Yeah.
It's a high stress environment.
These athletes are just next level.
Yes.
And Red Bull's just really taken that opportunity by the wings, but they've really sort of looked at ways of sort of understanding those athletes even more, and so they're one of the leaders in that Flow Genome Project. But the amount of crazy nutritional research that they're doing, psychological research that they're doing. It's just really, really biohacking the human body.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I love that.
If you ever get a chance, have you read the book Stealing Fire?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh my god.
We'll go through I'll find these,
Oh my god, Stealing Fire. I don't know, I should get paid every time I recommend that book, because
we'll get a sponsor.
the amount of people have recommended it too. But it's mind blowing. So again, it's by Jamie Wheeler and Stephen Kotler. So they're the guys I mentioned with the Flow Genome. But so they've got two exceptional books. Stealing Fire is one, Rise of Superman's the other.
Yeah.
Both the same topic, where they're trying to decode excellence. So in Stealing Fire, they look at top level. A range of people, ranging from, for example, top level CEOs like multi-billionaires to
successful people,
Navy SEALs, to a little bit of athletes, but then sort of extreme sport athletes. Whereas Rise of Superman's predominantly focused purely on extreme sport athletes. What makes their physiology so unique. But again, it's just mind blowing. And Stealing Fire, they really open up the doors on some pretty crazy stuff, and and different interviews and stuff. Like Jamie Wheeler, for example, said he's never interviewed a billionaire that hasn't used hallucinogenics in a productive work environment. Just about sort of busting open the doors and just getting your mind to really look at abstract things, or things in abstract fashion, so I say.
And that's maybe a little bit of chicken egg as well, because you just need to be that high on openness personality trait that you'd be willing to do something like hallucinogenics, or is it directly from the hallucinogenics that they can look at things from a different perspective? Like Watson and Crick, structure of DNA. They were tripping when they came up with that. That's how they came up with it. Is they needed to be looking from a novel perspective to be able to come up with such a ridiculous idea as a double helix structure for DNA.
It's crazy. And I mean, even you look at, they mention in the book as well, people with dyslexia and the prevalence of dyslexia in highly, highly successful people like sort of Richard Branson, a few other massive names in there that again have dyslexia. And in the past, traditionally, dyslexia has been sort of coined or seen as a learning disability, but now they're actually seeing it as a learning gift. Because it's your ability to, yes, you may not be able to, traditionally speaking, do some of the structured sort of reading and writing to what would be deemed sort of the norm, but your ability to perceive and look at situations and questions in a completely different fashion, it's a learning gift. And as I said, as a researcher now, I'm definitely moved away from just straight strength and power at the level of muscle. There's just so many different ways of ways that we can potentially biohack to make athletes even better, and it's just mind blowing.
Absolutely.
So I guess it's take-home messages: move to Polynesia, get on hallucinogenics, and just eat as much ribs as you can.
Good takeaways.
It's an studier.
Well, thank you, Adam.
No worries.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was a great chat.
Great chat.
Thanks for your time.
No worries.
That's all, folks. Hope you enjoyed our 2-part interview with Dr. Adam Storey, and a big thank you to Adam for this interview. Please visit our website at snippetscience.com or follow us on Twitter at snippetscience.